Do you know who you are and how do you know? Do you know what you're doing here and how do you know? Do you know what your calling is and how do you know? Do you know what your purpose is and how do you know? And if you don't know those things, then it is time to sit still and get very clear about that, because your value starts from there. Hey, I'm Shauna K. Hansen, lifestyle design coach, goal strategist, and corporate culture consultant. Welcome to the UnCultured podcast, where we talk about the ins and outs of what it means to have an effective and human-centered corporate culture. So why do we talk about that? We talk about that because it matters to you. How you work, how you make your money, it should matter to you. And how that company treats you in order for you to make that money should matter to you. So what we talk about here is the way that a company can show you how much they value you outside of just how much money you make by working for said company. So in this episode, what we're going to talk about today is your value, how you can know it, how to perceive it, and how to demand the maximum return on it. When you go to a job to work a career for somebody else, for another company, you are in fact trading your time for money. That is 100% the way that works. Now, as you advance throughout the course of your career, you end up sharing your skill set and your innovation for money, which ultimately kind of makes everybody that has a job micro entrepreneurial in some way. You're just doing so in like a more kind of refined system. So when we think about your value, we have to first consider, what are you best at? And this is not just about, skill sets, that kind of thing, but more than what are you best at, like, what are you put here for? When you think about your value, are you considering how unique you are and how curated your life has been to get you to this point? So when you go to a job to work a career with for somebody else in another, like in a company, you're not just giving them your time, you're not just giving them, 9 to 5, you're giving them all of your experiences as well. The challenge there is, how do you monetize your experience inside of a corporate environment? And that can be tricky. So you have to find ways to identify your value for the people that are outside of your own like body and like your life experience. So in a lot of ways, there's opportunities for you to do that when you submit for projects, when you're working in a team, when somebody asks you to execute a task, and you can really show forth kind of all your skill sets. But what if you don't know your value? Because again, skill set and value are not the same thing. So what if you don't know your value? Your skill sets come to kind of complement your value, but your value is intrinsic. Your value is innate. It's the thing that you're born with. You are valuable whether you have a degree on the wall or not. You are valuable whether or not you took the course or not. You are in fact valuable, and essentially you are value. So then when you think about your own value, what do you think of? Usually as humans, we're very easy to be able to say what we are not good at and what we don't know how to do. Sometimes we don't sit and think long enough about what does make us valuable outside of our skill sets and the tangible things that we have earned over the course of the years. So when you think about your value as it pertains to your life and what you want, what comes up for you? Hopefully, what comes up for you is a long list of things that make you you. Because that's where your value lies. It lies in who you are as a person, your personality, your quirks, and all the things that make you fun and interesting and boring and, whatever, and metered and strategic. All those things make you you, and they all have value. So, how do you translate your value that you identify and know that you have, and thread that through the needle of a corporate environment so that you can then demand recognition, compensation, and some other things like for your value? How do we do that? How do we get you from threading the needle of understanding and knowing your value to, in fact, drawing the through line to getting and recouping that value by attaching and working with a company? Part of it is your salary, 100%. Part of it is about how much money you are being paid for contributing your value to a company that's not your company, right? Because, I mean, obviously you have a choice about how you make your money. You don't have to stay with a company. You don't have to stay with the same company that you were with. Side story, when I was in college, I got 5 job offers when I was leaving school. And unfortunately, um, I at the time took the offer with the highest paycheck, right? Because that's kind of the training that I had, and that's kind of what I thought that was most valuable to me at that moment. But In hindsight, there was another company that would have required me to absolutely change everything about my life, but they had invested in me. They had given me an opportunity to earn money while I was in school so that I didn't have to worry about it, right? Like they were making sure that I was living, very well as a college student. And even though my youthful ignorance rejected the job offer, in hindsight, that company was showing how much they valued my value. It wasn't because I was making $1 million a year. It's not always that your value is 100% commensurate to the amount of money that you're going to be able to make inside of a company. And also, you have choices about where you give your value. So if the money that you're being offered to show up and be your full valuable self is in fact like just not actually enough for you to live on, for it to be reasonable, that kind of a thing, then yeah, maybe it's time for you to look at a different job. And also, again, because now we're hindsight 2020, right? And also, if that company is investing in you in a different kind of way, then maybe it's worth looking at. So, for example, if your benefits package includes something that allows you to really map the trajectory of your life, maybe that company values you more than just somebody who's willing to offer you more money. The salary isn't going to give you a better life. It's going to give you some better options or some different options. I won't say better options. It'll give you some different options, but it's not going to give you a better life. You know what's going to give you a better life? A place where you can really consider who you are and become the next version of yourself, which enhances your value to both you and to the company. Because the more solid you are in knowing who you are, the more you can show up as your full, big, authentic self for the company that you are working for at the time. So when you think about value, yes, paycheck, sure. And I think that that's probably how we as humans kind of measure this whole does this company value me thing first. It's like, oh, are they paying me more money? Then they value me and I will stay. I'm here to tell you the paycheck is not always worth the sacrifice of understanding that a company does not value you as a whole person. A lot of times companies will pay for a skill set, but that has nothing to do with you as a person. Understand that your value is not limited to your skill set. That's a very important nuance to this entire conversation. You have value just because you are you. And the company that you attach to, the corporation that gets the best out of you, should in fact understand you as a whole 360-degree human that has responsibilities at home and a family and dreams and visions and goals for your life and desires outside of working for this job. Maybe you want to write a book. Imagine a company where those kinds of thoughts are invited and welcomed as part of their culture, which is how this kind of all ties into corporate culture. It's not enough to say I have the highest paying job. It's about where am I highest valued. And so then your company does have a responsibility to show you that they value you. That's not an option. You are not optional. You are not put here to be somebody's option or second choice or a bucket of skill sets that they require. You're a whole person, and that personhood should be respected and, say it with me, valued. So that means not only are you treated well, that's baseline. I once had a conversation with somebody in a time in a season when I was dating. And she says to me, and I came back to her with a guy that I was dating, and my first descriptor was that he was nice. I'm like, oh, he's nice. He's really nice. She looked at me and said, nice is baseline. Nice is like saying he blows his nose or uses toilet paper. Like nice is the bottom of what it means to have somebody that you want to be in relationship with. Listen, the company that you work for, the supervisors that you have, the upper management that you report to, you're in a relationship with them. And if they are not anything more than just baseline nice, as far as the way that you are treated inside of the company, as far as the way that you feel valued inside of that company, that might not be the best relationship for you to be in. And this is not like one of those, your work people are your family. That's not it. But it is a relationship, not a romantic relationship. Please don't call HR. It's a relationship, though. It is one where you are interacting, you're growing together, you're learning together. And that is the best symbiotic relationship of employee and corporation. Company grows, employee grows. Employee grows, company grows. That's the symbiosis of relationship. So then where will you best be able to do that? In a place where your value is valued. Where somebody asks you, what are you dreaming about now? What do you want to do? What's your big vision for your life? Is it to be here It's not, okay, that's fine. How can I support you as your leadership to get you the life that you want? And I'm saying all of this to articulate the ideal scenario because can you imagine it? Most of you, because most companies have not yet embraced this format of corporate culture, but most of you don't work for companies that talk to you that way. They demand deadlines, they demand output, they demand productivity. That productivity comes from your skill set and not your value, right? They want you for what you can do, not who you are. What we're talking about today is how do you get so acquainted with the value of who you are that you are now in a better posture and position to demand more out of the place where you decide to spend your time and earn your money. Because please believe me when I tell you, you do not need to be desperate. And I say that from like a really cautious place. I understand that there are people that are underemployed, that are unemployed, that have gone through seasons of unemployment and underemployment, and find themselves now desperately employed. It meaning when you come out of a season like that, it's hard to turn down the first job that makes sense. It's hard to turn that down. It's something where like, you spend a year or 2 years out of work and then you end up at a job that gave you the most money or had the best benefits for a sick child or sick parent or well not parent but had the best benefits for a sick child or for you if you are in fact ill. And that becomes the place where you think you have to be because it's the option that made sense out of a season of desperation. If that has been your story, that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. There's a lot to be said for being fully and gainfully employed in this world. Like, listen, we all have bills. We got to pay them. I get it. Listen, I'm not I'm not trying to tell you, although I am wearing the shirt today, I do in fact advocate for people to quit their jobs, but only if that job is not valuing your value. So even if you came out of a season of desperation and you find yourself gainfully employed now and you're not exactly in a rush to find some other, job, I do want to challenge you just a bit today. I want to challenge you just a bit today. Now that you're out of the season of desperation, are you staying at the job just because you feel like you have to? Do you have a false sense of gratitude from feeling like you were rescued by this place? Was this place a pit stop and you're trying to make it a home? And is there something better that you could be doing with all of your big stinking value? You're so valuable. Seasons of desperation happen. They happen to us all. They happen to us all. I mean, I can remember a time in entrepreneurship when I had one client that was representing 80% of my income. I lost the client. Desperation. It sunk in. So I started to take any and everything, do any and everything. So I have jobs or clients rather. And so I am working, giving my value and my skill set and tired, exhausted, desperate, sad, not really feeling fully like myself. Not that I even knew what that was at that time. And so if that sounds like where you are, it's probably time for you to challenge whether or not where you are staying out of habit or a false sense of dependence or gratitude or that kind of a thing. It's probably time for you to challenge that. And you can start with this question: are they valuing my value or are they asking for my skill set and my skill set only? Companies that treat you not like a person and treat you like a collection of skills and deadlines, they do not value you. And it's time for companies to start valuing the value that comes through the people that are supporting their big vision and mission. Supporting someone's big vision and mission is a whole other topic for a whole nother moment. But at this point, it's really to you to consider how valuable is your value. So how can you know your value? Let's talk a little bit about that from like a little bit of a coachy perspective. Your value comes from knowing whose you are and who you are. So I always say whose you are, right? I'm God's kid. We don't shuck and jive about that around here, but I am God's kid 100%. And so I know whose I am. Knowing whose I am gives me an opportunity to know who I am because that's my true north. Understanding my connection and connectivity to God and kind of what my calling is and that whole bit allows me to know who I am. I am called to deliver this message. I am called to say this stuff. I am called to execute this thing. It gives me clarity of purpose by having that connection to my faith center. Whether it's faith or something else for you, what is it that lets you know who you are? How do you know why you are here? Because that's important. If you are clear about your why, the why you are here, your complete value in the world, which is alike unto your purpose or your calling, depending on how you identify the words, then it will be difficult for someone to sell you short if you know those things. But you must first know it. If you do not know that, then it'll be easy. Before I knew in my own life, right? Before I knew for sure, I I'm going to confess something to y'all. I don't talk about this a lot, right? Not anymore. I used to talk about it all the time back in my I'll teach you how to make $100,000 days, right? I used to talk about my story all the time. I'm going to tell y'all a secret, right? And unless you've been rocking with me for a long time, you do not know this. I used to charge like $50 a month to coach somebody one-on-one. And I'm talking about full brand development coaching, right? Like $50 a month. You got 4 hours of time out of me for $50 a month. Could I live on that? No. Was it exhausting and difficult? Yes. What I did not know then was who I was from the standpoint of what I am put here to do. My value is not in that level of coaching. I know a ton of people who are way better at that than I ever was, right? Because that's who they are, because that's who they are purposed to be in this world. Their assignment in this world is to coach people one-on-one about branding so that they can then show up in the world and have their own businesses and all the stuff and all the stuff. That's not my thing. It was something I did. Remember, desperation, right? It was something I did because I didn't know what else to do. But once I got clear about who I was, price went up, right? And it's not just about the money. It's about certain clients I didn't operate with. And then also I stopped taking checks and I stopped, lots of things, little changes that became clear after I really knew who I was. So value, first thing is, do you know who you are and how do you know? Do you know what you're doing here and how do you know? Do you know what your calling is and how do you know? Do you know what your purpose is and how do you know? And if you don't know those things, then it is time to sit still and get very clear about that because your value starts from there. If you're having a bad day, it's a little emotional. If you're having a bad day and you know who you are, that bad day becomes a blip on your radar. It doesn't become a defining moment. It's not the thing that'll keep you in bed for 6 months. Even if you are prone to depression, anxiety, even if you're prone to those things, just from like a medical perspective, knowing who you are and having like some practices that can remind you of who you are all the time will have you operating so heavily in your authenticity that even if you have a moment of a dip, you'll be able to recover faster because you will know why you are here. Knowing your value starts from knowing whose you are and who you are. Now, again, whether or not your faith is your center and the whole bit, whether or not you're God's kid or not, that's, personal choices. I highly recommend it, right? Okay. But if that's not your center and if that's not how you know, then how do you know? What is that confirming voice in your head and your heart that tells you over and over and over, I chose you. This is your assignment. This is your work. This is your value. How do you know? And where does it come from? And how do you stay connected with that all the time? Because it's important to stay connected to it all the time. Because without that connection, it's easy to get kind of caught up in what's happening around you every day. And so again, if you hit that dip where, things are not looking exactly as you would hope they would, if you are not reminding yourself all the time of who you are and what your value is in this world, then it's going to get easy to get stuck down there. That dip becomes a full valley and you just are walking along for a while. The song came in my head. I'm showing my millennial age. Amen. So if you don't have that center clear, it's time to get clear. So why does this matter? Why does my calling matter? When you assign yourself to a company, you are signing up to give your calling to that building, to that place, to that leadership. That's important for you to hear. When you sign up to work for a company, when you sign up to take a job, it's not just the money. You are giving your calling and your purpose to a place and a group of people. Are they worthy of you? Are they worthy of receiving your calling in their hands? Aside from the money, are they worthy of receiving that? Is there enough space for you to fully execute the work that you have been called to do? Because we've all been called to do a work in this earth. Are they worthy of holding the work that you've been called to do in their corporate hands? For most of you, the answer is no. And it's not even funny. I wanted to say maybe some of you, maybe not, but for most of you, the answer is no. Do you know why it's no? Because companies have not yet fully embrace this idea that there are people at the center of the work that they are doing. Their big mission is not metric driven, it's human driven. So I've come to encourage the humans that are driving the missions of the companies. You deserve better. 100% you deserve better, right? And so are they worthy? Are they worthy of holding your calling, your purpose, and your own personal, authentic mission? So that's the other part to this, right? Do you have space to be authentically you? Your value is wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up in your authenticity. Your authenticity is your deepest root connection to the person you were designed to be. Is this company worthy of your authentic self? Now let me say this, right? Some of you some of you have these jobs where you're like, no, they are not, but I'm gonna get this paycheck. Sure, that's fair. I mean, I hear you. Again, bills, got it. Don't send me your bills. I don't want to hear it, right? But is that your best life? Is your best life living stifling your value, stifling your calling, stifling your best, brightest, boldest, authentic self for the sake of just collecting the paycheck? I'm going to tell you the end at the beginning. The answer is no, it is not. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You know what is kind of worth the effort? What's worth the effort is going on the search of a lifetime, finding a company in a space where where your value is valued. Because that's important. And listen, if you are just starting the road and journey to discovering your value, it's great. And it's not a one-time thing. You discover and rediscover your value at different places in your life. When you learn more, when you encounter a podcast, somebody sent you this podcast and they're like, yeah, you're so valuable and you're not being valued. Now you're looking at it through a new lens. It's an ongoing and growing process that is meant to go and grow with you, right? So if you're just getting into this conversation about your value and starting to understand it and grow through it and do those things, challenge everything that you have accepted before you had this new information. That is the best place for you to start. And please understand that this is only the beginning. Hey, thanks for tuning into the UnCultured podcast. I've been your host, Shauna K. Henson, lifestyle design coach, goal strategist, and corporate culture consultant. If this is your first time here, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with somebody you know. If you're coming back for more, thanks so much for being here, and I hope that you'll tune in again. No matter what you're doing in your life, remember to make intentional choices, and wherever you are starting, remember that's not where you have to finish. Your life is yours alone, and your next dream is only one goal strategy away from getting exactly what you desire.